Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast, where we get some of the greatest people, and this week is no exception. Joel Mendenbaum. Joel is an author of Winning Online. It was a number 2 on the Amazon bestseller list. What's really unique is Joel used to own a trucking company, and he certainly understands trucking, recruiting, and all of that. And in the second half of the interview, he really dives deep on how you can use the social media to increase your recruiting. All right, so stay with us. Joel Mendenbaum is next on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. There, Joel, welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. How are you?
Fantastic. It's Friday, it's sunny, and I'm alive and healthy. What more could we want?
Good start to the weekend.
Health is the most important thing.
Yes.
Johnny, you had a question for Joel.
I do. I've heard so much about Joel Mendenbaum that I've been curious to know, what is all this hype about? What's this Winning Online stuff, this New York's best-selling book and whatnot? Joel, tell us and the listeners a little bit more about what you got going on here.
So thank you for that. The book wasn't a New York Times bestseller. I want to be accurate. It was an Amazon bestseller.
Amazon.
So
okay, perfect. Well, they're better than the New York Times.
Spot. Better, of course. And more people go on Amazon than on the New York Times. Yeah. Who wants to be part of that organization? Yeah. We actually hit number 1 in 6 categories. And then we hit number 2, the top 100 paid Kindle books on Amazon, period. And that lasted for about 3-4 days. And Michelle Obama stayed at number 3. So I knocked her off. Yay, Canada.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
I wrote the book. It's kind of a bit of a funny story. When I sold my transportation company back in 2012, I really, really, really sucked at online marketing. If you saw my website, it was a landing page with just order your, ID and password. And the image that was on that landing page, which was the homepage of my website, was like a road going into the distance. And there were dark clouds at the top. There was probably a lightning bolt in there somewhere. So, looking back now with my marketing brain thinking, the heck were my customers thinking when they were placing their orders, looking at this road to nowhere? Is my package even going to get there?
Yep.
That's how inept I was at marketing, at online marketing. In fact, I had some SEO guy call me up and say, give me money. We'll put you on the first page of Google and you'll get all these clients and calls. So I said, okay, here's $100, save my company. And, I didn't get a single call because I probably got clicked out. I'm not going to get into Google and all that stuff today. But so I said, it's enough. So the company that acquired me, they were masters at digital marketing and technology. So, when I moved over all my clients, I noticed about 6-7 months after moving over my clients that the volume of my clients was up almost 50%. So I said to the owner, I said, wow, Frank, you really bought me out at a good time. I'm like, this is great for both of us. And he kind of nodded his head, smiled, and said, no, that's not it. I know exactly what I was doing. I knew exactly this would happen. And I was a little befuddled, you could say. So he saw the look on my face. He said, well, we're friends now. Let me tell you. I'm thinking, okay, there's this pit in my stomach. I'm starting to feel that I really missed something big. And I said, what is it? He said, well, I paid you a premium. I was paid 3 times the industry standard for getting. Generally, the industry pays you 20% for a year or 2 years based on the business you bring over. Well, I was paid 60. And the reason he paid me that was because, my clients weren't cheap. I never played the low ball game. Mm-hmm. And we had great service. And we also had shared some clients that he could never wrestle the rest of that business from that. So, but he knew a couple of very smart things. So he said, I was always up on the latest technologies to make my clients efficient, and you didn't do that. And also, we're masters at digital marketing. And I always heard people calling and saying, hey, yeah, we'd like to sign up. They were like, yeah, what were your first order? And I'm like, wow, they're getting all these new clients. And for me, I didn't really do any online marketing, as we know. I just grinded it out, referrals, and that was about it. Not saying referrals are good. They're the best way of getting new clients, but you don't always get enough referrals to build your business meaningfully all the time. So, after I saw what he did, I was like, oh my God, I should have had a V80, not a V8. I should have a V80. So I had a choice. The choice was to throw myself a pity party, which I did for a little while, but I really had I've always been having a burning desire to be an entrepreneur. So after about a week, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to learn this stuff, I better learn it from the best people in the world, because I'm so far behind, like way behind. I'll get crushed if I start anything else again. So, I decided that I'm going to hang out with smart people. If I have to fly halfway around the world to have a coffee with somebody that has done this, uberly successful. I didn't just want to meet people that knew what they were doing. I wanted to meet people that had some type of advantage, whether that is a disruptive strategy, whether that's a disruptive technology, or whatever that is, so I could kind of be ahead of the game. Because one thing I did understand early on, that the internet is the fastest moving technology in the world. So I found a bunch of smart people, some local, some international, and started hanging out with these people, started selling for these people so I could really understand what it's all about. And these were very, very smart people. And, just by association, you become smart. You're like the people you hang out with. So I'm having meetings with clients, and clients are saying, wow, Joel, I've learned so much today. You should write a book. I'm like,
what a novel idea.
I don't think that's not going to happen. Of course, the fear of writing. I like to write, but there's no way I'm going to write a book. And a very smart, wise, successful business person said to me one day, said, Joel, if one customer tells you something, take it under advisement, but you don't necessarily have to do anything. But if a lot of your customers start to recommend something, it's the same thing, you better act fast because you found a gap. So, I had him chirping in my head, and just more and more customers. And what really was the breaking point, I was at a networking event, and I met a business owner who had just built a website, and we got to really talking on a good level. So he opened up and told me that he's actually has to shut his business down and unfortunately declare bankruptcy. And I felt that kind of strange that he's at a networking event for a business that he's going to shut down. After I thought he was probably there more for the socializing, to try to get away from all that stress that was probably going on in his head. So we talked, and he showed me his website. He said, well, what would you charge me to build this website? So it wasn't a complex website. It was a nice website. So he said, probably be around $5,000 to build your site. His jaw drops, and I'm thinking that he's going to say, that's a lot of money. So his jaw drops, and I'm like, okay, well, what did you pay for the website? And he says, I paid $15,000. That's what I said. But I used an expletive that we probably shouldn't use here.
Yeah. Fuddled.
What the fuddle?
Exactly.
And I have to say, I got really mad.
Yeah.
Really mad. I thought, what? These jerks, there's jerks in every industry. Or bad actors is now the political term. Bad actors in every industry. And I was just mad. I'm thinking, this guy was taken to the cleaners. There's no way in the world this website should cost even half of what he was charged. So
right.
I just had an idea. I said, you know what? Can you make me your chief marketing officer for a day?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I can't afford you. I'm like, no, free. He says, well, for what reason? I said, I want to see if I can get you something back from that web development company.
Yeah.
So he's like, sure. So I said, okay, I'll come in your office tomorrow morning. Went into his office, picked up the phone, called the web development company. I said, hi, I'm the new CMO, and I'd like to know when the website will be finished. There's this silence on the phone, and he says, the site's finished. It was signed off. Your boss, And by the way, just so you know, I've never had a boss since I was 18, because I started my business at 19. So your boss signed off on it. I said, he may have signed off on it, but we both know that he doesn't know much about digital websites.
Right.
So he trusted you that the price you gave him. And you and I both know that this site is not a $15,000 site.
All right.
Yeah, that was I said, come on. My team's been building websites since the late 90s. You've only been building them for a few years. So it's not built properly. It's not coded properly. It's slow page load. There's a bunch of issues with it.
Sure.
So and he says to me, so what do you want? I said, I want half back or a credit.
Yeah.
He says, well, I heard you guys are going out of business. And when he said that, I really got mad. I said, actually, it's quite the opposite. We just got a $500,000 funding, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. Like the look, or you could tell on. It wasn't a Zoom call, but you could tell there was silence. Look on his face, like he said, "Well, I'm not giving you back half." I said, "Well, why don't you do the right thing? You got to give him something." And I'm thinking maybe $500. I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, what do you think I should give him?" And as soon as he asked that question, I said, because he said not half, I said, well, why don't you tell me? So one thing I learned a long time ago is never make the first offer, the first move, or say the first amount negotiating. So he says, well, I could do $2,000. It's like he was asking me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, could you do 2,500? He's like, sure. And I'm thinking, well, I promised him, you know what? We're going to do a lot more web work. We're going to do a lot of stuff with you guys. We're going to be building out other office. I knew what to say because it had been said to me before, and I fell for it at one point. Sure. And so I say, can I come over and pick up the check? He's like, sure. So I go over, pick up the check, introduce myself, shake my hand, blah, 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 and all that. Beeline it to the guy's bank, get the check certified, go back to the office, and call him up and just said, when you're coming back, he was at lunch or something. I said, when you come back, I have something for you. So I've just finished doing some work. He pops in about 20 minutes later, hand him an envelope, opens up the envelope, looks at the envelope. He asked me, what is this? I said, this is a refund for your website. And his jaw drops. These tears came into his eyes. Yeah. And he looks at me and he says, that's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. I'm going to give you half. How much do you want for your time today? Yeah. I said, I don't want anything for my time today. He said, what happened to you? Even the fact that you paid now $12,500 for a website. I said, it's still way too much. I said, let's call it something that I did. I was a Cub Scout when I was little. And so let's call this my deed for the month, deed for the day. Sure. And, it was a very, and at that point I realized that a lot of business owners probably get taken to the cleaners. And I'm not saying every web development company or every digital agency is unscrupulous or a bad actor, but there's a lot of them in every industry, of course. And I felt mad. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to write this book to teach business owners at least a basic understanding of what they need to do to win online and where to have their head at while they're trying to understand what they need to do. And so, I actually reached out to my ex-vice president who ran my Buffalo office. He was an amazing writer. So I asked him, I said, look, I'll pay you, but I'd like to write a book about online marketing. He was down for that. And around the time we finished writing it, we were looking at it, and it was more of a data dump, you could say. Do this, don't do this. And then we decided that's not how it should be. It should be a story. So it's a story based on the main character, Danny, is my rendition, if you could say, of every customer I've ever had made into one. I'm not Danny, but I am in the book. So we decided to make it a storyline so people that read it could absorb the information. And after each chapter, there's an actionable step that one can take to implement. And so a friend of mine had just taken a course on how to self-publish on Amazon because I had looked at the publishers and I'm just like, what a scam. Sorry if we have any publishers, but asking me to buy 10,000 copies of a book or where I've got to be the slave, get next to nothing for the book sale, and be kind of under someone's thumb. That's not why I wanted the book. Just, it was a passion project, and I was hoping that a few people would like it, and at least I could give it away or do whatever.
Sure.
Well, yeah, so obviously we launched it, and it far exceeded my expectations, and it's done very well. And obviously it's helped a lot of people. And back at the end of October, I pre-launched a course, which is an extension of the book. And that was actually at the NRS, and I had a few students sign up.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I've had some very good comments as a result of that. So we're just, and the last couple of months after, a few months after, some other things have come up in my business that kind of delayed me from pushing that out on grand launch. So we're going to be launching that course in the next couple of weeks. And of course, if any of your listeners are interested,
Yep.
I'll definitely give them a big Chris Safety Dog discount.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Gotta like
So,
that.
Let's talk
so
a
that's
little
why I
bit.
wrote the book, and that's what happened. So
Good deal.
there you
All
go.
right, so
What a story.
how can a trucking company take what's in the book, take your knowledge that's in your head, and use it to? There's a recruiting crisis right now. Every trucking company wants more drivers, and we all know that there's a shortage of drivers. So every company's out there battling, and they all pay the same price just about. And, how can they take what you've got and apply it to recruiting?
So to understand, you really have to understand what's the behavior of a candidate. What's the behavior of a potential prospect? When you think about it, they're not really that different in terms of making the decision whether to work for your company or to buy from your company. The main factor when making a decision, whether it's buying or whether it's working for you, as I'm sure you'll agree, is trust.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, driver shortage is not a new problem.
No.
There were driver shortages when I had the business back in the 80s. Well, for regular courier drivers, I would say it was feast. You could literally put an ad in the Toronto Star, a small ad, and you get 20 calls a day. Something happened in the 90s that just changed and hasn't happened since. And I think part of it is an industry perception problem. I think that's part of it. The other thing is that unfortunately, a lot of trucking companies, their online visibility is horrible and ugly. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily conveying the professionalism or the work culture that company has. Most people let me just throw up a website as cheap as I can just so we have some online visibility. That's like saying, yeah, I'm going to build a custom home and let's just throw it up as cheap as possible so I can move in.
Yep.
There's no long-term thought about that. So what happens when you build a cheap website? It doesn't look good. It's not designed proper. The client journey or the candidate journey isn't there. There's no reason. It's all talking about how good we are and what we do and us, I. No one cares. They only care what you can do for them. So just like landing on your website, the difference between a good and bad website, you need to track. What I suggest is putting in what's called Google Analytics and tracking your traffic. And that's the first thing, is that you should get an idea, measure how things are on your site. What's the activity? There's heat maps that you can add to your site. One is called Hotjar. Hotjar.com will show you the journey of someone as they land on your site, where they click and where they drop off, which will give you very powerful insights. So in terms of candidates and drivers, we have to think well, how do we sell a candidate or driver on our company? Because that's exactly what we're doing. Well, they look for trust. So what are your online reviews like? Before we go into even talking about, say, social media, you have to be prepped. You're not going to start running any type of marketing campaign to bring people to an ugly website. That's just a waste of time and money. And I would get mad at you if I was your digital Sherpa. In fact, I probably wouldn't even start doing a campaign. I've actually told clients I'm not going to work with them because their website is so ugly, doesn't load fast, there's no user experience, and yet they want to dump a bunch of money into doing a marketing campaign. And all you're going to do is just show the world how ugly your website is so they can laugh and leave. So you're actually paying people to come make fun of you. That's really the end of the day, because you're not going to get the results. You're not going to get the conversion. You're not going to get the interaction. So multiple things have to be done. You've got to start off, because the base is your website always. People go to your website to judge your credibility, to gain trust, to determine if you're a professional company or a mom and pop or just some, So if you use GoDaddy's website builder because your cousin's or son's daughter took web design, although it might look okay, or you might even like the look, how do you know it's built properly? Because if it's not built properly, you could have a Viagra commercial on your site one day, which isn't good for business, or a link that people click and it downloads malware or something. So you should really, really be serious about making sure you have a beautiful, well-built website first before anything else. And we've got to look at, people are going to, set their home in your company. What's your reputation like online? Do you ever Google your name plus the word scam, your company, plus the word ripoff, plus the word reviews? I would do that, because what if there are, negative reviews about you? Or even worse, what if there's negative reviews about another company that's a similar name as yours that's showing up in search? Because, we don't have time. You literally have 2 to 4 seconds, boom, like that, from the time someone comes on your website to capture their attention, or I'm gone. So if I went to your website, first of all, you need to have social proof in the website. You need to have reviews. I don't mean testimonials because no one's going to publish a negative testimonial. People want to see reviews. They want to see star ratings. They want to see a comment. They want to see if you've resolved an unhappy customer, if you have a negative review. Because a negative review can actually increase your conversion by as much as 85% on your site if you've shown that you resolve those issues, because people expect those 5 stars. I don't even go to look at 5 stars. Does anyone here might look at 1, and then we're going to go to the bad reviews, because that's how we are as humans. We like to look at negative first.
Yes,
So
exactly.
You have to make sure you have good reputation. You got reviews integrated into your website. Chris's website, Chris just built a beautiful new website. He's got reviews in his site. So when I land on his site, if I'm looking to get my CVOR and I land on his site and I'm comparing his site to his competition, if he has good reviews right on his site, then that doesn't force me to leave to look for reviews in Google, because I already see them. So it's one step less, and now I can make that decision. Same thing about building trust with potential drivers. What are they looking at? If you hear a negative review about you, and I'm a driver, obviously I'm not even going to respond. You just won't know that I was there. And who knows? No one can say how many people they're losing because their messaging or their reviews aren't good, or they've got a bad reputation. I mean, we have technologies that can help fix that and gain more control. But the bottom line is that, if it's there, I'm gone. And if you haven't even checked your reputation, you better check, because you might be pleasantly surprised, or you might be poorly surprised. So that's another thing that they're going to look at. Now, you should have reviews of drivers, the social proof of drivers. So asking your drivers for reviews, honest reviews. I mean, obviously you don't want to put up a negative review of a driver. You want to deal with that, and you want to have your happy drivers. It's a little different from a driver review versus a customer review. If you look at companies like Indeed, Glassdoor, those are job and review platforms as well. So it's important that your visibility be there. So that's another thing that you have to do. Now, if there is negative information about you out there, there are ways of suppressing that information. There are ways of bumping that down lower in search. We won't get into that, but there are ways of doing that. So you really want to make sure that your reputation is there. Now, what's the other thing is, if I come to your website as a potential driver, what does it talk about? Does it talk about your driver? Do you have sections about your drivers? Are you championing your drivers? Do you show things? Do you show company days where you're celebrating drivers? Driver of the month, things like that. So when I come in as a potential driver, you want to sell me on all the benefits of working for your company. I don't care you've been in business 60 years. I really don't. I'm not even 60 years old.
Yeah. I want to cut you.
Yeah, but not.
Yeah. I want to cut you off there, Joel, because Chris and I, as part of what we do for a living, evaluating customers, is we also investigate. So we're going online. And I have to admit, there's probably more times we see really bad social media presence where most everybody's website is identical. They just talk about trucking, warehousing, logistics, the fleet that we have, but they don't talk about their drivers. They don't talk about their successes and whatnot. And then they have an associated Facebook page. And what I see a lot of times is they haven't touched the Facebook page in 3 years. And it's full of bad reviews, and there's no rebuttal from them. There's nobody looking after it and whatnot. So, it's a real shame because there's opportunity right there. And you know what? It's marketing, but it's all negative right now. So anybody that looks at it is going, oh, wow, there's like 60 different bad reviews. Move on, keep going.
Yeah, if you have reviews, because those reviews will also show up in Google. Google indexes Facebook reviews. Yep. So you'll see your Facebook page with that 1 star next to it, which is bad because as soon as I see that, in fact, the sweet spot, believe it or not, is around 4.5 to 4.7. It's not 5.0, believe it or not.
Yep.
Because if all your reviews are 5-star and you have more than 20, 25, even though it might be true, people start to not believe it. The more you have after that. So if you have a bunch of great reviews, I mean, I have only 5-star reviews on my book site. On Amazon, I've got 2 negative reviews. One makes no sense at all. It says there's no content. You'd think somebody would hit check before they hit send. I have no clue what that means.
Yep.
And I had another negative review. It wasn't so negative. It was like a 2 or 3 where the person said, well, if you really want to spend a lot of money, read Joel's book. It's very basic, but I skimmed through most of it. So how does he know it's basic? And that's fine. It wasn't meant for advanced digital marketers. It was to help entrepreneurs and help business owners that don't understand. So if there was a way I could put a rebuttal comment in there, I would. But it is what it is. I have other 5 stars. You see, where you get that trust factor from a negative review is when you respond and show that you're trying to resolve the issue. People know there's haters out there. People know that there's pissed off people. If you say, look, we're sorry, we tried to do it, whatever, that's actually going to give what I call mega trust, more trust than your 5 stars, because I'm looking at your reviews because I want to understand that you're going to help me out if I'm not a happy customer, or if, let's say, I'm a driver and I had an issue that was resolved. We probably wouldn't put negative driver reviews up there, obviously, because it's probably a driver who's going to quit. So you want to make sure, obviously, that your relationships are good with your drivers to put up. And if they put a 4-star, that's okay. If they put a 3-star, that's okay. If you have mostly 5s and you have a couple of 4s and a 3, even a 1-star in there just to kind of mess it up a bit and then respond to it, because people will go, majority of the reviews are good, and they're seeing the same type of responses in those reviews. It's where you get into problems where you have a negative review that's not responded to, or multiple negative reviews where the issue is still the same. Because what that will do is convince me that you haven't fixed your problems. In terms of social media, when you're talking Facebook, if you're not posting at the very least on a business page weekly, I mean, maybe every couple of weeks, shouldn't even have your page up.
Yeah.
Because it's just showing, like, have you ever been to a website where they have a blog and there's one article there and it's all the gobbledygook, developer language, lorem, ipsums, whatever, that's stuff, placeholder.
Exactly.
What do you think when you land on that site? These guys are out to lunch. They don't even pay attention to detail. They haven't even finished building their blog, or they take that thing out. And if you're not blogging, don't have a blog. But understand this, that the blog is the 3rd most looked at page on a website. The first is
wow.
your homepage because I
Yep.
have no choice.
Mhm.
Second is the About Us page, believe it or not.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
why is the About Us page the second most looked at page? Because psychologically, people want to understand the people they want to do business with or work
Right.
with. So if your
Right.
About Us is we're this, we're that, we're good, we're this, it's not going to cut the mustard. You should
Right.
have pictures of those people, clear front-facing pictures, smiling,
Mhm.
and maybe even a story, what I call a mess story. So, as an example, I have a client who has a staffing agency. We built his site, we did all his content for him, and all he wanted to do was brag on his About Us page about his accomplishments. And I said, no, not going to do
No.
that. I want to know why you got into staffing.
Yeah.
Well, I like the industry. I said, no. There's a reason we're all where we're at. Something that happened to us when we were younger, something that shaped our belief system, and something that we got passionate about. Otherwise, we burn out. We're in the wrong place, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So it ended up that his father always worked late hours. He came from a very poor upbringing, and they were from job to job, and he didn't have that type of security. So he wanted to start a staffing agency that he could make sure that he could provide jobs for people and help businesses that have staff shortages. But mainly his motivation was to help people get more work. I mean, the candidates aren't who you make money off of. You're making money off the customer, but without the candidates, you can't bring in the customer.
Right.
So we turned that into a story and put it on his About page. He gets a ton of traffic. Now, there's no way of knowing, would it have bumped up his traffic? But I would probably bet when you go onto a website, compare apples to apples, and you got a website where it's just talking about us, or a website, this is the reason why I got into the business, and it's an actual heart story, if you will, that connects me directly with that company super fast, and I'll build that trust factor. Because remember, no one's going to buy from you or work for you until they like you, until they trust you, and until they know you. And to get that know, like, trust, you have to do the time. Just like building a relationship with a potential customer, you still have to do the time with the driver. In fact, I would argue to say these days, the drivers are more valuable than customers.
I think I agree with that.
Getting customers.
Yeah.
The day when I was running.
Yeah, drivers are most important
for me.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Chris, you were going to say something.
I mean, the drivers are just as important. Which is first, the chicken or the egg? What's more important, the driver or the customer? You have no customers, you can't pay your drivers. You have too many customers, you can't service them. You don't have enough drivers. You have too many drivers, not enough customers. You lose drivers, and that's an equation that no one's been able to figure out yet. However, if you're marketing proper, if you're giving your drivers incentives and bonuses and reasons to come work for you, and list that out on your website with, and I'm clicking around your driver section, have a section about our drivers or something like that, opportunities, that might be a nice little subcategory you put on your website.
Sure.
And you're talking about, and having testimonials and pictures and showing fun and showing earnings, and that I don't have to be away from my family for 2 weeks because I'm the first driver in there, and I got to start at the bottom. Things like that. Dental, like all of these things make me want to work for you. Don't try to impress me because your competitor is trying to do that, and I'm kind of bored.
Yeah.
So in terms of social media, you should have somebody who does social media professionally and understands social media so they can actually not just post regularly, because the reason your blog is the third most looked at page is because people want to learn about you and understand your knowledge base. Does this company know what they're talking about? Can I learn something from the blog?
Yeah, this is the thing with the young people today. Everybody's all over social media. That's how they interact nowadays. Before it would be, I'd be looking at the paper, I'd be looking at this, I'd be trying to figure out other ways. But with social media, it's so simple. So anyway, I think we're getting close to our time. Are we not, Chris?
Yes, we've got to wrap this up. Joel.
So let me say something quick before we wrap up. And let's be serious for a moment. if you're a B2B business,
I thought we were serious. What are you talking about, Joel? This has not been serious.
This is. I got to give 2 seconds for those people that have the personalities. You know, there's 4 personalities that are going to be listening to this. So now I got it for that one personality. If you're a B2B company, what the heck are you doing on Facebook?
Yep.
What are you doing on Instagram? You know, Facebook and Instagram are social platforms. They're not professional platforms. You should be on LinkedIn.
Right. Yep.
Did you know that there's over 12,000 people on LinkedIn in North America with the job title trucker or truck driver in North America? 12,000 of them. Now, they may not always come on LinkedIn, but I would suspect that a good percentage of them, you know, they wouldn't put their profile up there for no reason.
Right.
You know, maybe there's owner-operators as well, and they have their own business. There's a lot of people there. So I'm not saying don't be on Facebook, because if you are on Facebook, you need to connect to interest groups, drivers groups, and all that stuff, make yourself known. But on LinkedIn is where people go. It's a professional platform. So you should have a good LinkedIn profile of all of the employees. You should have a good and well-done business page on LinkedIn, because it's going to show your professionalism along with the good website. And if you are on Facebook and you do have some followers and some of them are truckers and this and that, fine. But make sure that you're posting regularly, and whoever's doing your Facebook marketing responds to those comments. If it's a negative comment, it's just someone pissed off, you need to turn that off.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to destroy your reputation. So that's all I have to say about social.
Makes sense.
That's beautiful. And it's a great way to wind up this interview. So, Joel, in the show notes down below, we've got a link. What's the to your website page? And by the way, when Joel mentioned my website, that is cvr.ca. Don't go to my Safety Dog page, because that's not nearly as nice as my CVR page. All right. cvr.ca was the website Joel was talking about that his company has done for me. And it's a beautifully done.
Yeah, it's a really nice update. It's gorgeous. I was looking at it and it's like, wow, this looks cool. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So I bet Chris paid you.
Spent some good work at that. It was a great site.
Yeah, I paid you like $15,000 for that, because that sounds like a good number to charge.
No, we charged Chris $18,000 for that one.
$18,000. Perfect. Cool. Yeah. Good deal. I'll help you out, Chris.
And of course, Joel is joking, just in case anybody misses that.
Anywhere near that. No.
All right. With that,
Joel,
thanks so much. I would encourage our readers, our listeners and our watchers to pick up Joel's book, Winning Online. I read it when I first met Joel at the NRRS, where he did a presentation. I purchased the book right then and there. I didn't have to go through Amazon. So Joel made all kinds of extra money off of me, because Amazon didn't get their cut. But with that, Joel, thanks so much for coming on board. Your contact info is in the show notes below. If somebody would like to reach out to Joel, do that. His team knows how to build a website and get your social media presence up to date. And I think it's really important nowadays that be done professionally if you want to attract the best of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing you're going to say, Chris, if they want to direct your readers to my website, on my website, which is winningonlinebook.com, you'll see at the very top, there's all the, on the nav bar, there's a spot there where it says book a coffee. So feel free to your listeners, if they want to hop on a quick 30-minute call with me, help them with maybe some of their burning online marketing issues, or help them with their recruitment issues the same way. And let's just have a chat. It's complimentary, and would love to help the people and your listeners. It's a great industry, one that I miss. So,
well, I really think that, having worked with you now, I really think there's a lot of trucking companies out there that could use some guidance in, because I've seen some of the websites and I've seen some of the social. It could be improved. And I really believe to attract the best, that's a great place to start. And we all need better drivers, more drivers today. So with that, Joel, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Nice meeting you, Joel. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris.
Gosh darn it, that was a great interview. Thanks so much, Joel, for coming on the show. Joel's contact information and the link to Winning Online is in the show notes below. Hey, if you're getting some value out of this on the Trucking Risk and Insurance podcast, would you please click like, leave me a comment, or ask Joel a question, and I'll make sure that Joel gets back to you. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. That's it for this week. Trucking Risk and Insurance podcast.